You are listening to the sounds of the Right On Network.
Hello and welcome to On the Record Jams, brought to you by the Right On Network. This is episode 31. I'm AJ.
I'm Arthur.
And hey guys, I just want to thank our Patreon subscribers because we're getting towards the end of the year and we're feeling very gracious and grateful. And I want to thank Alan Wright. He went to patreon.com/rightonnetwork. I'll put that link in the show notes. Alan Wright, check him out. He's Bold Outlaw, boldoutlaw.com. He blogs and writes about Robin Hood and history, pop culture, you name it. Merc Bandwidth, he's the sound of the Right On Network. He's our music, all this stuff. And check out his music on the music platforms. He goes by Merc Bandwidth. Cluck Trent, Kevin Federkoski, Mark Blair, Paul Hicks over in Australia. Hello, Paul. Laurel Phillips. Over at the Fire and Water Podcast Network, we have the Irredeemable Shag. Justin Steiner on Substack. He goes by Shoefly Pie. Justin Steiner. Rick from Jeff and Rick Present Unpacking the Power of Power Pack. Chris Pine 1. Be on the lookout for that. Chris Pine 1 and I, we're going to do this mini-series about the Beatles Get Back documentary. 30 minutes to get back. We'll give you more information about that. 30 minutes to get back. Chris Pine 1. Bill Beer of The Bat Pod. April 5K, listen to her on the Manhattan Project talking about Friends and Seinfeld. The great and wonderful Jordan Holt and Clinton Robeson of Fan Film Fridays and Coffee and Comics. Guys, thank you for going to Right On Network / patreon.com/Right On Network. We'll put that information in the show notes. All right, guys. So on episode 31 of On the Record Jams, we are bringing the record Tangled Up in Blue by Bob Dylan. It's on the Blood on the Tracks album. It came out in 1975. 1975, that's when Saturday Night Live appeared on set. You know, we're in the 70s. We got Led Zeppelin, funk music, and we're getting into like the second decade of Bob Dylan going into his career. So, Arthur, my history with Bob Dylan was basically like when I was growing up, I didn't hear any Bob Dylan. So, I was listening to R&B that my parents were playing and soul records. And then I shared a room with my brother and he's basically playing like 80s rap, 90s rap. So I didn't know anything about Bob Dylan the only thing I knew about Bob Dylan was just that, hey, he was this cultural icon, that he's this cultural icon. And back in the day, we had gatekeepers and, I respected it or whatever. And when I got in high school and college, I was into music magazines. And when they would do countdowns and stuff, it'd be Bob Dylan things in there. And I still didn't inquire. I think I knew he did a song called Like a Rolling Stone. I knew about Bob Dylan having the cue cards and holding them up and he was flipping the cards or whatever. I just knew him just as like this figure, but I never explored his music until later in life. And I think kind of in the late 90s, early 2000s, I really started exploring Beatles music. And then I was like, hey, let me try Bob Dylan. And I bought the Blood on the Track CD and I listened to this song, Tangled Up in Blue. And I think I was just so kind of like blown away and mesmerized that I thought, okay, this is a little too much and I will revisit him later. And then I think maybe like 13 years later in life, I revisited him and then I'm still like exploring him. So the way we're going to tackle this discussion, or the way that I kind of imagine it, is the way I imagine the show is like, hey, we have Arthur and AJ. We're your uncles, and we're saying, hey, check this out. Because we're giving you like a song at a time. And with music, it's like, okay, they recommended the song. Maybe the song is 4 minutes tops. I'll hit play, and I'll listen to it as I'm like putting my gym gear together to go out the door. And in 4 minutes, yeah, I heard it. I listened to their commentary. Yeah, I guess that was interesting. Maybe I might play it 3 more times. If I play 3 more times, 10, 12 minutes tops, boom. So it's like, all right, because the thing is, and I know I'm like this at my old age, even when I was 19, I was like this. But I'm not going to really take on another vice. Like, I'm not going to take on another thing because I'm so deep diving into what I already have going. I'm not going to just all of a sudden start watching, I don't know. Like, I'm not going to start watching Lord of the Rings. Like, I'm not going to start watching like this dinosaur or this dragon TV show because I already got these other things going. I can't take on another thing. So it's like, all right, Bob Dylan, it's like an encyclopedia. Like, he has a number of albums. And the thing about Bob Dylan is there's sometimes where he'll have a couple of lines and I'm so stuck on them, I can't move on. So in the song Visions of Johanna, where he goes, inside the museums, infinity's put on trial. Okay, boom, I'm done. I can't go and now let me listen to this other Bob Dylan album because like I'm already done with that. I'm done. So it's like, okay, I don't listen to Bob Dylan. You guys have this episode where it's a Bob Dylan discussion. I'm not going to skip it. What do you guys have to say? So I suggested this one. I think there's a lot of Bob Dylan stuff in just this one song. And I think maybe the two of us, if we can kind of break it down and check it out, maybe we might be able to get to the bottom of this. Now, I will say that Rob Kelly over at the Fire and Water Podcast Network, he has a podcast called Pod Dylan. And on their episode 100, he and a guest, they talked about this song, Tangled Up in Blue. So if you really want to go into the weeds of this, because we're talking about this particular record, over time, Bob Dylan, he's made some amendments and changes to the song as far as lyric-wise and content and might how it changed the meaning or the tone of it. We're going to kind of stick with this recorded version of it. But Arthur, Bob Dylan, what is your relationship to this musician?
It's kind of the same thing you described. Like as a kid, it was just one of those things. Like you said, the gate keeps coming, his name comes up, you hear it, and you just kind of take it at face value. Like, he must be awesome. At some point, I'll get into it. And normally with music, like one of the great things we've done for each other, and I mean, I bring up Big John a lot too, my dad's friend and eventually my friend that had a lot of unk energy for me. So he was a few years older than me and he could walk me through things that maybe I was too young to understand. You know, I'm 3 or 4. He was maybe 13, 14. So those songs hit him different, as the kids say. And I think that's what you need sometimes to get into more complex artists. Sometimes you need a tour guide. Like, you remember you would have certain shows you wanted me to watch and you would literally say, hey, Art, I'm going to come over there and we're going to watch this show together. Like, we're going to watch a couple of episodes and I'll walk you through it. And then you would kind of treat me like a baby bird and throw me out of your nest. And then I watched the rest or I didn't. Like, I think with Dylan, that's kind of what you need. And for the most part, I had to get to the age where I could be my own tour guide before I could listen to it and really digest it and understand it. So that's kind of my relationship with him. But once you get it, I mean, it's all there and it's a lot of great music. It's a lot of great, I don't want to call it a trope because trope is a negative word, but a lot of things that artists totally do now and artists did right after he was doing it. Like, now I understand the influence. I understand why his name comes up so much because of so many foundational things he did. Was he calculated and tricky about how he came up with it? Well, okay, that's maybe where you can argue. But yeah, that's my relationship with Dylan. Like, I didn't get it till I hit a certain age to get it. And now it's just a lot of playing catch up for me.
Arthur and I were really excited. Again, we're recording this in December of 2025. And we're really excited because we've been getting all of this great music in hip hop. Nas and DJ Premier, they made a whole album together and we're pumped up about it. And Nas is known as like this super duper lyricist. And he kind of has this, even though this guy's a mogul, he has riches to make Solomon blush. But he has this kind of people's champ, voice of the people type thing going on. So like, in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a rivalry between Jay-Z and Nas. And as far as like finances, they could be in the same stratosphere, whatever. But it just always came off like, okay, Jay-Z is like, I'm upper echelon. I'm like with the elites. And Nas, he kind of came off like just his voice, like, oh, I'm the man of the people. I'm the people's champ. I'm like this folk hero of hip hop because he kind of just has that delivery. He just has that voice. We have De La Soul. They've been in the game for decades. They released an album. It's great stuff. We've just been really happy with these musical releases. Like early in the year, we had an episode where we talked about a record from the Clips. So we've been very excited. And one of the things that I like about Bob Dylan is, of course, he's a lyricist. There's a lot of times where I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about. I don't think I get what happened there. But there's a lot of times where he could turn a phrase, he can emote, give a delivery where I'm like, man, not only was that a clever line, but I think that was a clever way to deliver it. So I always find that fascinating and interesting. But yeah, Bob Dylan, he wasn't someone where I was in junior high and somebody laid it on me. Now, back in like 2011, 2012, 2013, at the Woodlands Cynthia Pavilion, it's a suburb outside of Houston, there was a lineup that I saw live. It was Bob Dylan, Willie Nelson, and John Mellencamp. And it was a great concert. And Bob Dylan, he had this one song called Nettie Moore. And it sounded like his voice was shot. I didn't know what he was saying. But the music sounded like a countdown. And it almost sounded like a countdown to your life. And I was like, what is this? And I could never find the song. And then one day I went on Pod Dylan because I was on an episode of Cheers Cast on the Fire and Water Network. And it's a Fire and Water Podcast Network. And it's about the TV show Cheers. And I may have made some type of off remark about Bob Dylan. Not something crazy, I just made some type of reference. And Rob Kelly asked Ryan Daly, that hosts Cheers Cast, like, hey, ask AJ if he's into Bob Dylan. Like, talk to him about it. And I was like, hey, I'll come on there. And he was like, what song would you like to do? And I picked I'd Have You Anytime. And that was a song co-written with George Harrison, because I'm a big time George Harrison fan. And George Harrison, he would quote Bob Dylan lyrics like scripture. He just really liked Bob Dylan. The two of them were in a band together called the Traveling Wilburys with Tom Petty, Lynn, just a number of Roy Orbison. And there was like a super group in the 80s, Arthur, you may have seen the video where they're in the train and they're all playing guitar and they're just in this train like they're traveling Wilburys. We're going town to town with these folk heroes. So, yeah. But Bob Dylan, Arthur, let's look at some of these lyrics because before I laid this on you, had you ever heard of Tangled Up in Blue?
I had heard Tangled Up in Blue. I hadn't heard Blood on the Tracks, though. I hadn't heard the whole album. I didn't totally understand the context of it, but now I do.
Yeah. So from what I'm gathering, because I'm not chapter and verse about Bob Dylan, I remember one time Rivers Cuomo of Weezer, the lead singer and songwriter, he said that, like, hey, when people say that they love Shakespeare, they're really saying, hey, I read the same 3 Shakespeare plays over and over. And a lot of times in the United States of America, when someone says they're a history buff, that's usually code of, I read about World War II and the American Revolution over and over and over. But like, it's like, hey, what about 1066 or Crimea? I don't know anything about that. So with Bob Dylan, I know Blood on Tracks, Blonde on Blonde, and Highway 61 Revisited. I just know those albums. I know a couple of other albums later in his life, but I don't know a lot about Bob Dylan. I do know that, he started out folk and, God on My Side. And then when he went electric, the audience kind of turned on like, oh man, you sold out. Like, I think I even knew that before I even listened to Bob Dylan music. One anecdote that I thought was funny was when I was really getting into the Beatles and learning about their history, when they did Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band, they played it for Bob Dylan, and Bob Dylan's response was, oh, so you guys are done with being cute? And it's like, you know what, Bob Dylan? This is 1975. You're trying to be cute here. Okay, buddy? You're trying to be cute on this stuff. Come on, buddy. And, okay, so the Beatles, they did the whole thing where they're like, look, man, we did these world tours, and every time we went to a place, it was upheaval, riots, revolutions, and they're like, man, we're not touring anymore. So basically, we're going to make a video of ourselves performing the song, and we'll send it out. So you're getting kind of like MTV before MTV. And then Bob Dylan did the thing of, oh, I'm not touring. So when the Beatles broke up and everybody went solo, we had the Tribute to Bangladesh live album that George Harrison put together. And that brought Bob Dylan out of retirement. And you can kind of see there's a song where George Harrison and Bob Dylan, they come out and they're kind of performing. And it's very adorable because it's like they're looking at each other. And it's like George Harrison's like, yeah, no, you can do it. Look, you got it. You can do it. I'll put that in the show notes. And then boom, Bob Dylan has never stopped touring since. This dude is touring nonstop. So that's another reason why I picked this song. It also sounds like that. It sounds like a traveling man. So, like, is this song about Bob Dylan? Is it autobiographical? Who knows? But I just love these lines. Let's talk about it, Arthur. So he goes, early one morning, the sun was shining. I was laying in bed. And I think just those lines itself, it kind of brings the listener in because, that sounds like everyday stuff, everyday people. Early one morning, the sun was shining. I was laying in bed, wondering if she changed at all, if her hair was still red. And it's like, man, there's a lot of stuff there, just kind of reminiscent about maybe somebody from the past. We all do that as far as like, I wonder whatever happened to, Sarah with an H, right? Her folks, they said our lives together sure was going to be rough. They never did like Mama's homemade dress. Papa's bank book wasn't big enough. So still playing with those ideas of like class. You're thinking like, okay, it's the 1970s now. Bob Dylan, this is an established artist. And he's still like resonating with like, I'm going to deliver this music from this angle. In the 80s, when we were watching like Sweet Cherry Pie, remember the guys, they were wearing their spandex and the women were dancing on the cars?
I do remember that.
And like in rap music, I got this, I got that. It's like, no, dude, I'm on top. I'm on top. I'm not going to do People's Champ music. I'm on top. But like, I just find it interesting that even on this new Nas album, he's doing things where it's like People Champ stuff. Like you got the song Writers, where it's about like the graffiti artists. You would think like, oh, he wouldn't do something like that. He's far removed from it. But it's like, well, like people kind of expect that from me. What I can do is I can't say I'm doing this stuff now. So I'll come from a reminiscing point of view. Just like when we're listening to the Clips album, it's kind of like, okay, I'm further in life and I'm kind of reminiscing back. And then that's how I can get away with doing these street tales, this People's Champ stuff.
Right.
I don't know. Her folks said our lives together sure was going to be rough. They never liked my mama's homemade dress. Papa's bankroll wasn't big enough. This whole like Lady and the Tramp stuff. I dig that. I love that stuff. Like you and I, we were talking about Billy Joel before this conversation started. And what is he doing in there? You're this uptown girl. I'm this downtown guy. It just makes interesting storytelling because we're from different sides of the tracks.
Right. And then the parents are, of course, not in on it because of that difference.
And then we have the Montagues or whatever. We got Romeo and Juliet, where our families are rivals, so we can't be in love together. This storytelling all this time. This guy's great. Bob Dylan's great. From Minnesota, he is. Rain falling on my shoes, heading out for the East Coast. Lord knows I paid some dues getting through. Tangled Up in Blue. I'm just so fascinated just with the title. The title itself is a bar. I'm tangled up in blue. Like, am I tangled up in depression? Am I tangled up in calm and resolve? It's just, oh man. And then you and I, there's been several records where we talked about, hey, I'm from the Midwest and I'm going to the West Coast. All right. Or, hey, I'm from the Midwest and I'm going out to the East Coast. But this whole thing of, I'm going to go to the big city. We talked about that with Stevie Wonder. We talked about that with, not Percy, but.
I mean, yeah, it's a common theme, especially during certain periods of time. People from smaller towns moving and going back or going to a bigger town in the area of the country that they're closest to. It's still like now we look at it on a map and maybe it's a 1 hour flight, 4 hour drive. But we also live in the United States where I think the stat is something like 50% of the people in the country live like 20 to 30 minutes away from where they grew up at. Right. So the idea of getting up and moving it's not something that everybody does. Like, so it's a very big deal when that happens. But it's always cool to hear how that goes into the music.
Junie Morrison's Susie Thundertussie.
Oh, yeah.
Is playing with those themes.
Nice.
Okay, so this next line, she was married when we first met, soon to be divorced. When I think I always felt it, but now I realize like that's very scandalous. I remember Adam Sandler, he was in this Judd Apatow movie where he played the lead. It was called Funny People. And he actually turned down being the Jew bear in Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards to do this movie because I think he thought, I think I might get nominated for this. Because, yeah, there was some comedy stuff in there, but they were being very dramatic as well. And he passed on that Inglourious Bastards to do this. But I don't think the movie hit well with the audience because they were playing around with, like, he was messing around with, like, somebody's wife. And it's just, I don't know. It was certain things in that movie, I think it kind of rubbed people the wrong way. And these two lines, she was married when we first met, soon to be divorced. So it's like, hey, I met this lady, man, I'm kind of into her. Find out she's married, but like the paperwork, they're still working on paperwork, but they're getting divorced. It's just the paperwork still, the wheels are in motion, things are happening. So she won't be married long, but we're kind of messing around while she's still on paper. But pretty soon she's going to be off paper. And Bob Dylan, like, he's not using like these SAT words. He's not, but he just knows how to go, hey, these two lines, boom, it's a book. That's a novel right there itself. She was married when we first met, soon to be divorced. There's a lot of times with Bob Dylan where I just kind of listen to some of his lines. I just start laughing.
It's
because
you're right.
He's out of control.
It's out there, but it's like you get so much to chew on that it's like you almost have to, like we talk about hip hop a lot, where if rappers say certain things, you have to stop and rewind. Maybe you have to listen to it again to really understand where they're going with certain concepts or little tricks that they're putting and little Easter eggs into their verses. But yeah, like Dylan's good old folk singer, man. And so it's in there. He's playing around with song construction. This song here particularly has like 7 or 8 verses, like but like you said, it's bars all over the place. And they talk about how long it took him to write this song up the first time, let alone with the rewrites and the revisions. But like, yeah, there's so many different moments where you could just get kind of stopped in your tracks, no pun intended, to be like, man, okay, that's a lot going on in this situation for sure. We're at the beginning of the verse 2, and we could talk about any of these couple lines for 10 minutes apiece easily.
And guys, if you never heard this, because you gotta remember on the record jams, we're covering like an array of things. So it might be like, oh, when they're talking about the 70s R&B stuff, that's when I tune in. But let's say you're tuning in now. Just if you haven't heard this, one, I have the music in the show notes. Please click that link and listen to it. But the music, the crescendos, it is intense. Like it's a whirlwind. Like it captures you. Like I don't know. Like the first time I ever heard the song, I was 22 years old. I think it scared me. And like I mentioned before, when this first started, I was like, you know what? This is so much. I think it was too immature for it. It was so powerful. I was like, I will return to this later in life. And then I waited till like I was in my 30s. So it goes, she was married when we first met, soon to be divorced. I helped her out of a jam, I guess, but I used a little too much force. We drove that car as far as we could, abandoned it out west. That just blew my mind. I helped her out of a jam, I guess, but I used a little too much force. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Did they kill that guy? Like, she's soon to be divorced, but that paperwork ain't moving fast enough. Did they kill that? Like, what's happening here?
I don't think it's a Dateline episode, but yeah, you have to at least think about it.
But when I first heard this, like the first 30 times I heard the song, I never thought that. And then just one day I was like, whoa. That's why I like, okay, so he goes, split up on a dark, sad night, both agreeing it was best. She turned around to look at me as I was walking away. I heard her say over my shoulder, we'll meet again someday on the avenue, tangled up in blue. So like, man, it's like we did this thing, like this powerful thing together. We abandoned the car out west. But it's something like it's so unspeakable, we can't be in union anymore. But maybe I might see you again on the avenue. And it makes me like that line, because it's 1975. It makes me think of Annie Hall, where at the end, they break up, but they kind of see each other again. And it's like, oh, you know what? This is kind of nice. Like, yeah, we were together and I didn't want to break up, but yeah, it was probably best we went our own certain way. Like, we took it as far as we could, and now it's time to depart. I don't know. Now, this next stanza. I had a job in the Great North Woods, working as a cook for a spell. I just love how he uses words and lines. Working as a cook for a spell. But I never did like it all that much, and one day the axe just fell. Like, I've had it. You can take this job and shove it. Because, we're in the 1970s. There's like, protests. There's like these labor movements going on. Look for the union label if you are buying a shirt or a blouse. Like, it's that kind of sentiment going on. Like, the 70s was pretty wild and wide open. So he goes, but I never did like it all that much, and one day the axe just fell. So I drifted down to New Orleans, where I happened to be employed, working for a while on a fishing boat right outside Delacroix. So, like, just moving around. Like, sometimes, like, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, they'll play around with that. Like, we're moving to different parts of the geography of the United States. He went out west. He went out, heading out for the East Coast. We abandoned the car out west. Now we're going south to New Orleans, this French name, Delacroix. He's playing around. Bob Dylan is. He goes, but all the while I was alone. The past was close behind. I seen a lot of women, but she never escaped my mind, and I just grew, tangled up in blue. I love that. He's saying, I've seen a lot of women, but she never escaped my mind. I love that line. I've seen a lot of women, man, but it was just something about her. She just had that thing, man.
I like
how about that, Arthur.
And I like how he's just jumping around. I like that's the thing about it, and it's this. I think people pull this out of Bob Dylan in general, but like you say, this song being so definitive, it's like, okay, he's not giving it to you too easy, and I think that might be part of the reason why this song might mean more to us as we get older, and you have the ability to look back more, and as you get older, some of the the clarity in certain moments aren't just, you don't remember it like it was yesterday because it just wasn't yesterday. And some things you do remember that way. So some of those details are super zoomed in, and some of those details are kind of like, yeah, this is kind of how I remember it, but I'm not really sure. I think this is what happened. And maybe you get those group of friends together and you argue about exactly how it happened and when it happened and all the details. Like, he's doing that as a one-man show in the middle of a song.
He said it took 2 years to write. It took 10 years to live.
I like it. Seems right.
This guy, he has a song. It says, it takes a lot to laugh. It takes a train to cry. That's the title of the song.
Yeah.
They be having bars in the title.
Blues, man. He's a blues dude, yes, man. And the blues, that's something, being from this region, even if I didn't listen to a lot of folk music, a lot of it has a lot of connectivity to just that whole concept of down home blues, like the storytelling, I might not come right out and tell you exactly what's going on, but I'm going to infer it in a way to where you can fill in the blanks and kind of tell your own story on it. So there's a lot of that happening here for sure.
Yeah, like I'm going to be John Steinbeck. I'm going to talk about these working people out in the fields, Delta sharecroppers, and like you're saying, the blues. And, to prepare for this episode, we were going back and forth, like talking about certain Bob Dylan songs and like how he plays around with like just the mold barnyard blues music. And I find that like very interesting, where he's making these songs in the 60s where he's trying to make it sound like blues music from maybe 20, 30 years prior. Just freaking love it. So, and Arthur, when you're listening to this, do you think he's talking about one woman or like several women or just different stories in general?
Man, it could be, I'm not sure. I mean, I talked myself into believing that it was one person, but I think when you look around to understand his rendition of the song, and no matter which version it is, he's like, no, it's not who you think it is. It's not just one person. This is just me kind of trying to play with the concept of time and space. And you can't hear this song and know exactly. You can't put it in order. The verses aren't in chronological order. I could be talking about 7 different girls on every verse, right? Like I could be talking about a different girl on every verse. How would you know, really? Or it could be 2 or 3 women. Like but just different times in life where you come across these people and you're just kind of going back to remember things. I think people would love the idea that is one person, but I'm not 100% sure.
Or like the storytelling is a different person every time.
There's that too.
You talked about how you're like, okay, I understand now how this dude, like he's a foundational piece, right? In culture.
Right.
Because like the way that the story is moving, it makes me, I'm like, if I looked into it, I bet like the creators of Forrest Gump, they're into Bob Dylan. Because like this song is moving like Forrest Gump. Like, okay, now I'm over here. And then I go over there and Jenny's over here. And she's living this kind of lifestyle. And then I go over there and I'm living this kind of lifestyle. And Jenny's like living this kind. So it does feel like that movie now when I listen to the song, it seemed like they move the same.
Yep.
I could be way off base.
Yeah, it jumps around.
It jumps around. So check this one out. She was working in a topless place, and I stopped in for a beer. I just kept looking at the side of her face and the spotlight so clear. And later on, as the crowd thinned out, I love that. As the crowd thinned out, like time has gone by. You know, there's 13 cigarette butts in the ashtray. That's letting you know time has passed. She was working in a topless place, and I stopped in for a beer. I just kept looking at the side of her face and the spotlight so clear. That's just imagery. And later on, as the crowd thinned out, and I was just about to do the same, she was standing there in the back of my chair, said to me, "Don't I know your name?" I muttered something underneath my breath. She studied the lines on my face. Whew, guys. And you got to hear the music. It just sounds like a whirlwind. Oh my gosh. She studied the lines on my face. And that's just very interesting. Like, there's a lot of things like an older actor can do with their face to emote emotion without speaking that like a younger actor can't convey yet. And if that younger actor can, they're already doing some powerful stuff. I remember in that, I think Avengers Endgame, where Iron Man tells Spider-Man, he's like, "Hey, you know what? Boom, you're ordained. You're an Avenger now." And in like a 1 second, the actor, he got kind of hyped. Then he was like, "No, let me play cool." And then he had a little dread. He did, this is a young actor. He did it all like in one motion. I was like, oh man, he already got it. And later on, as the crowd thinned out, I was just about to do the same. She was standing there in the back of my chair, said to me, "Excuse me, do I know your name?" I muttered something underneath my breath. It's like, hey, did I mutter my name? Did I say it was, who knows what I said, right? She studied the lines on my face. I remember one time, Killer Priest, he said, "The dirt under my nails got a story to tell." Mm-hmm. I must admit, I felt a little uneasy when she bent down to tie the laces of my shoe, tangled up in blue. I always took that like it was like this line, it's a line of not kindness, but like gentleness, or like it's a contrast. You're like, oh, they're in this topless place. Like, this is scandalous, right? But like it's these kind, tender moments happening. You know, she studied the lines on my face. Like, hey, I'm trying to get to know you. Excuse me, do I know your name? Like, oh, we do know each other from the past. Or I'm trying to open up a conversation by being familiar with you. Like, hey, do I know your name? Oh, I don't? What is it? So I just thought there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there.
Yep, a lot of people argue about that, right? People argue about that whole last line, like she bent down to tie the laces of my shoe. Like that could be a few different things, right?
Yeah.
It might be that, but it might not be. And the great thing about Dylan is he's not going to tell you.
He's off in the wind. This dude, I sold you the encyclopedias. I'm gone.
Yep. He might know exactly what it meant, but he's like, no, it's going to ruin it if I tell you exactly what I meant. Like, that's the point. I'm leaving it open for you.
And I'm off to the next town selling encyclopedias.
Yep.
Like, this guy, I listen to his music, and sometimes I just kind of think of the lines. I just start laughing. It's hilarious. She lit a burner on the stove and offered me a pipe. "I thought you'd never say hello," she said. "You look like the silent type." And I like this where it's these two different kind of people, like the way they approach. Like maybe he's more introverted, she's more extroverted, and the opposites attract. Then she opened up a book of poems and handed it to me, written by an Italian poet from the 13th century. I just love that. And every one of them words rang true and glowed like burning coal. Because we're still talking about that burning stove. And every one of them words rang true and glowed like burning coal. And what I like about that is it's kind of like, I've never lived this life, but like in every one of these lines, I'm kind of just relating to it. You can swap things out, but it's like, as dense as this song is and is as kind of like, wait a minute, what's going on here? he still makes it relatable when it's kind of distant and not relatable, but he makes it relatable. It's like, how do you do that? Then she opened up a book of poems and handed it to me, written by an Italian poet from the 13th century. And every one of them words rang true and glowed like burning coal, pouring off of every page like it was written in my soul from me to you, tangled up in blue. Woo.
Spitting.
It's just so wild where like, I love this whole idea of, I'm with this woman, she turned me on and stuff. And then boom, we don't see each other again. I go into the future and I'm really into this Italian poet from 13th century. And I meet the next person and I'm kind of introducing them to it because of the rub in boxing. Like I boxed this dude, I lost, but because of the rub, I kind of learned some lessons and I'm able to use it for the next fight.
Right. And it's kind of the way that the world works, right? Like that whole concept of people sometimes are in your life for seasons, that whole deal. And yeah, you can take and learn and give and like the humanity behind it, right? Like this is why Bob Dylan gets this elevation, right? This is how Bob Dylan, like again, when you're 17 and you listen to this, you're like, well, okay. But when you're 27, you listen to it, you're like, oh. And then once you get a little bit older, and now again, you have the power of nostalgia and looking back and being just old enough to where you can't exactly remember the details of all these moments in your life that you loved and enjoyed. Like, you know, it happened. You remember it happened. It meant something to you, but you don't have all the gritty details. You just kind of sort of remember this is about how it happened. And he's getting that across expertly in this song.
Woo.
Repeatedly.
Yeah. Repeatedly. I lived with them on Montague Street in the basement down the stairs. There was music in the cafes at night and revolution in the air. I lived with them. This is in the past. Then he started into dealing with slaves. And something inside of him died. She had to sell everything she owned and froze up inside. And when finally the bottom fell out, I became withdrawn. The only thing I knew how to do was to keep on keeping on like a bird that flew, tangled up in blue. So now I'm going back again. I gotta get to her somehow. All the people we used to know, they're illusions to me now. Some were mathematicians, some are carpenters' wives. That's kind of interesting how it's like, you know, I remember I lived with them on Montague Street and man, we thought like, yeah, it's going to be a new tomorrow and all this. And there was revolution in the air. And then time passed and it's like, hey, man, that revolution stuff was cool, man. But man, I got to get the square job, man. I got a kid that needs diapers. I got a kid that, you know, we had a man, I got settled in one place. I can't do all this running around. I can't be a hop along, a vagabond. I can't be a hop along. All the people we used to know, they're illusions to me now. Some are mathematicians, some are carpenters' wives. Don't know how it all got started. I don't know what they're doing with their lives. But me, I'm still on the road, heading for another joint. We always did feel the same. We just saw it from a different point of view. Tangled Up in Blue, baby.
This is
yeah.
We like a lot of music, right? And hyperbole is the language of the day, right? And you've heard me through all these episodes going on and on about different reasons why I like different songs. And I've probably been caught on the record jams multiple times saying this is one of those ones. But I'm sorry. This is one of those ones. This is one of those ones. There's so many accomplishments in this song. There's so many things that it makes perfect sense now. As a person of my age, as a person with my life experience. and have listened to how many ever songs, how many ever times, to hear this song now and say, oh, so yeah, that's why. That's why all these people bring up Bob Dylan. Because you get to a certain point in your life, you hear these songs, and imagine if you were an artist of any kind of seriousness, you would try to do some of this stuff. Maybe you wouldn't try to do it in one song. Maybe you would do it over the course of an album. Maybe you would do it over the whole course of your career. To try to be this good of a storyteller, probably you have no hope of being this efficient to be able to get this much accomplished in this dynamic but still compact manner. So I hear it now, especially in hip hop. Like any kind of concept album, like I hear this song and think about so many other concept albums and think, okay, even if this wasn't their only influence, there's no way this didn't have anything to do with it. You know, like Blood on the Tracks as a whole, Tangled Up in Blue as an individual song, all of it. Like, it makes perfect sense. It makes all of the bringing his name up make sense. It's almost like if you hear songs in the key of life and you're like, oh, so this is why people say this about Stevie Wonder. Oh, okay, I get it now. You hear whatever Marvin Gaye album you think is the album. By the way, it's I Want You. That's the one. But, you know, there's other ones, right? And people hear those albums. Funny enough, you think Blood on the Tracks is 75. Here, My Dear, Marvin Gaye is 78. Have a hard time believing that he didn't have some intention behind, you know, hearing these Dylan songs and thinking, man, how could I do that? But just nowhere near his focus. But he made a double album, and it was his quote unquote divorce album, but it was a lot more on the nose, a lot less sprawling than this. But those two albums get compared a lot. It makes sense to me. But like this, yeah, this is another word that gets thrown around a lot. Masterpiece. That's what this is. That's what it is.
Yeah. It's really the definition of a great record. Like, this is a great recording. Like, wow, they captured a moment. Like, whoa.
Yep, it makes sense.
And I can see how, like, the first time I heard it, it scared me.
Right. It makes sense that it took them a long time to put this together, because it's bold to even try to do anything that you could think he was trying to do with this song. Is still like audacious for him to even try to do this. I don't care if it's about one song, one lady, or seven ladies, or multiple different people in multiple different periods of time. And just the point is about humanity and how memories come and go and fade. And there's little weird details that are super zoomed in. And there's other details that you're just like, yeah, I kind of don't even remember what I said when she talked to me. Or, yeah, you know, the relationship didn't work out and people said it wasn't going to work out. And I'm sitting here one morning just waking up out of nowhere, and I thought about this lady and I wonder if her hair was still red. Yeah. Like, man, sheesh, Tangled Up in Blue. Like, and you know I'm a sucker for any time you go into a hook, or even because he's so, you know how the rappers say, I don't need no hook for this. Like, he didn't need a hook for this. Yeah. But he came back and he said Tangled Up in Blue multiple times, and he had the respect to rhyme the line before every single time. I'm a sucker for that. You do that to me, you're going to get me. So, you know, getting through Tangled Up in Blue, on the avenue, Tangled Up in Blue. And I just grew Tangled Up in Blue. Of my shoe, Tangled Up in Blue. From me to you, Tangled Up in Blue. Like a bird that flew, tangled up in blue. Of you, tangled up in blue. Masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece. It's very interesting how it's interesting how he's doing the illusion of this is a stream of consciousness. but at the same time doing orchestrated craft. And then every time he does the Tangled Up in Blue, it feels like it hits differently every time, but it's just the same line.
Yep. It hits differently every time. It almost, you could talk yourself into like a quantum leap type of thing. You remember that show?
Yep.
Scott Bakula, right? He would go to these different places and then he would hit a certain time and then he would just get warped to a different place, like almost like Tangled Up in Blue is the safe word to get him out of that time and going into a different time. Like, it's just, you could feel it. You could see it. Like, it really unfolds for you. This is one of these, this is something else that I don't normally, I'll laugh at this when people say this sometimes, because I think it could be pretentious, right? When people say, ooh, man, this record doesn't have re-listening value. Like, it doesn't make sense to listen to it again. And I just want to throw something at them, because, like, who are you to decide that if somebody enjoys a record, even if there's a bunch of subtext, even if there's no subtext, what if it's just a jam and people like jams? We go over those. We have songs in our lineage and songs coming up to where there's not a lot of subtext. It's just jamming. And sometimes people want to hear music because it's jamming. But there's also the piece of where you got an album or a song like this that really has a lot of, like you say, bars, things to unpack, things to think about as an individual line, things to think about as each individual verse. When you try to put all 7 of these doggone verses together. And this is one of those records that I think actually really deserves the phrase, it's really rewarding to return to the song and just let it kind of take you over. Just run it back again, listen to it again. Maybe you have the lyrics in front of you. Again, I know we talked about this in the PYT episode. Even as a kid, I used to be one of those lyrics in front of me, reading the lyrics type of person. I've done that with other albums, certainly with D'Angelo, because in some cases, the whole concept with D'Angelo is that it's really hard to understand what he's saying. So if you have the lyrics in front of you, then that kind of solves the mystery, because you can just kind of hear him say it. You can read him while he's saying it, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. But like with this, you can completely make out everything he's saying, but like you say, he's jumping from thing to thing so fast. And he's kind of like crazy like a fox, right? Because he's so disarming, right? Because this folk music style, the music itself is very simple. People go on and on about him as a vocalist, but the ability to emote and create feeling with your music, if you could do that, you can sing, period. I don't care about sheet music. I don't care about notes. And he's bang up at all of that. So all of this stuff hits you. And it's just, how many different ways can we say this is just a great record?
I think you summed it up. I think everything you just said after me reading those lyrics, it summed it up. Yeah, it's a moment. It is a moment. And, so far with me listening to this new Nas premiere album, Light Years, I've been listening to it on the go, traveling, driving. I want to do a proper either walk with it or sit down. And I know when I first listened to this Tangled Up in Blue, I was listening to it on a CD player, seated in a room. And man, just imagine when this first came out in 1975, you're in front of that record player and you're just sitting there listening. No distractions, no driving or multitasking. I mean, you probably could. Maybe you're folding clothes or whatever and listening to Tangled Up in Blue. But I'm thinking during that time, especially someone buying a Bob Dylan album, I got to sit down and listen. Woo, and you heard this? Yeesh.
Rewarding. Very rewarding.
So, guys, I'm going to close this out because, this was, I'm going to listen to this again. I know I am. I'm going to listen to it maybe on Christmas Eve or something.
One more thing, though. I want to run the question by you. You always do a good job of asking me questions and unlocking different things from moments of songs that I've picked. But with this, What are your thoughts on the different versions? Like the whole living document approach of this song and just how he has the different versions with the lyrics changed around years later. Like maybe you don't need to go over every different version of the song, but what do you think about that just as a concept of an artist doing that?
Okay, so because this guy of who he is, Bob Dylan, I know like when I saw him back in 2012 or whatever, and he did like a Rolling Stone, it was like different. Like it wasn't like the recorded version. And it's like, okay, just let him touch that. Let him touch that. With this, you know, like when musicians were like, I'm not playing that song anymore. That's in my past. I'm not playing that. So you're like, okay, all right. I find it fascinating that he's still like fascinated with the song. Like, oh, it's a nut. I just haven't cracked it right. And like the fact that like he's not going like, I'm changing the tempo of the song. Like, no, I'm really trying to like, I had to turn something in, so I turned something in. But like I'm still working on this. Just the fact that over the years there's these different versions, and like if he changed a line here, totally changed the perspective. And that he still is interested in, because, you know, there's sometimes where it's like, hey, man, I know you guys like the stuff that I did in 1968, but, man, I really think this 1990s release, this is my best stuff ever. This is the best. So I think it's like, hey, let them live, because it's like, okay, you know people like this song. And I think everybody's in on it. Like, I think when people are going to see Bob Dylan, I would say 90% of the audience, they're in on it. Like, okay. And then I guess if you go to one of these shows and he changes a line, you're like, oh, this is a moment here, because now we can go back and go like, oh, this is what he did here. Because I know Bob Dylan, he's one of those ones where bootlegging the concerts, that was a big thing, and like he did this here, or he put that there. So I'm fascinated with the fact that he's still interested in the song. Like it's not something that bores him. Like, I don't feel like playing this. I like that he's still into it.
Right. I think it's endearing to the song too. I think it kind of makes it seem like it's almost like a sanity check for the listeners to be like, oh, okay, so this thing is great. And it was great to you too, and it took you a lot to get it together, which makes sense based on all of the great things that it manages to accomplish in its space. So it's like, okay, you want to play around with it. You want to make sure you don't give away the answers to the test all the way, but you play around with some of the things to whether you want to make it a little bit more obscure or you want to make it a little bit more clear, which again, because you're Dylan, you're not going to tell anybody which one you're doing. But like you're playing around with it, but it's such a great piece of work that the bones of it, like, yeah, it's just a fun thing to do. And there's a lot of songs that you can't do that with. Like it's got to be what it is. Like even when you talk about artists showing up and singing a song in a different tempo or a different key or whatever, right? And they start messing with the nuances of what makes that song work. Like you could drive people crazy with that. And I think what he's doing is a little bit different than that.
Because the song is about that. The song is about like, oh, I got to change, or I'm on the move, I'm on the go. My perspective changed as time went on. So it seems like this would be the appropriate song to do that with.
Right. Very much so.
Wow. Hey, this we did our first Bob Dylan on the record jams, and you know I was going back and forth like, what should I do? What should I do? And I was just like, you know what? Because this was my gateway, my first like, hey, I'm going to listen to a Bob Dylan song. It was Tangled Up in Blue, because I knew every time I would look at these top 50, top 100 albums, it would be Blonde on Blonde, Highway 61 Revisited, and Blood on the Tracks. And I think I probably thought, Blood on Tracks, that sounds interesting. And I picked that one up. And I think if I would have gotten Highway 61 Revisited or Blonde on Blonde, I think, not saying that it's simple music or whatever, but I think I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. I think I would have pursued further much sooner. But I think with that Tangled Up in Blue, it was just so wild to me. I went away from it for a while. And then, hey, maybe I might even watch that movie with Timothy Chalamet. Help me understand him more. Bob Dylan. We're going to get out of here. Let us know what you thought about this. Let us know about your relationship with Bob Dylan. Do you not listen to him at all? Did you listen to this? What were your thoughts about Tangled Up in Blue? Did you ever go to a Bob Dylan concert? Did you go to I know there's like a Bob Dylan society, like in different meetups. And they get together, they talk Bob Dylan and, try to decipher his lyrics or talk about like his bootlegs in 1983 and how he changed this here. Let us know. Where can they reach us, Arthur?
ontherecordjams@gmail.com. We have an On The Record Jams page on Facebook. We have OTRJ at Blue Sky. Anywhere where the podcast is posted. So YouTube, Apple Music. It's on Amazon as well. Amazon Music. If you go there and put a comment, we'll see it. I think you gave the advice that if you do a review from outside of the United States on Apple, we need to see that email so that we make sure to know to go filter and look for it where we can really see it and interact and follow up. But yeah, there's a lot of different places to keep the conversation going.
So until next time, guys, this is AJ saying, keep your lamplight trimmed and burning.
And keep on jamming.